Good evening, friends. Good evening to all of you. Kavita, Jyoti, Krishnamurti, Rishi, Aishwarya. A very good evening to all of you students on this particular session, which is the fifth class on the English practice batch. Again, those students who are hearing this particular lecture for the very first time, just to remind to all of you that this is a free practice batch for English as well as for Hindi, but both of them are conducted separately. English batch is at night 10:15, whereas Hindi batch is in the morning 7:30 a.m. And those who want to get enrolled for this practice, the description box has the number. First number is my number. You can me. I'll add you to the Telegram channel where you'll find all the links as well as the PDF notes for this particular batch. Can freshers watch this lecture with some knowledge of GST? Yes, Hafiz, you can. Definitely. I suppose that you can. Other students can comment. They would be in a better position to comment on this, but to me, it is fine. Please increase the volume. I will do that from my side and just then check out at your end also, Gopal. Students, just confirm on the volume part. Is the volume fine now? Gopal, please do confirm once on the volume side. We So the volume fine, students. Now it should be fine. Ashura is saying fine. Perfect. Go, Jyoti. All good now. Perfect. So Gopal, now it's all fine as confirmed by the students. So I think that it is all good at your end also. But friends, if you see the last lecture that we all did, the Kavita, the last lecture, students, that we all did in this context, remember 7.1c, the most important particular definition of supply or the scope of supply under 7.1c in red with schedule number 1. In that, without consideration, there were 4 cases which was being identified. There were 4 cases or 4 paras, Rupa, which was being identified, and we have already did up till the last lecture 2 cases. So now in today's class, the balance 2 cases, students, we need to deal with it, because that is the ultimate aspect of our supply chapter analysis, and the rest is only the conversation. So which are the 2 cases that we already have considered in the last lecture of 7.1c, read with schedule number 1? This was about the related party transaction between, or the supply between the related party. And thereafter, the last one was the import of services. Now, if you see the import of services of 7.1c, I have compared with what? With 7.1b. Adequate charts was also being made to those case study to identify the comparison and all the incidental point like registration, the liability to pay, reverse charge, so on and so forth. Those were being considered. So the remaining 2 which is now left out, students, is what we have to deal with it right now. The remaining 2, students, that has been there, which we are going to deal with it right now. And the first one, students, happens to be the disposal of a business asset. That is one. And the last one, which is to be considered in that 7.1c, is about the supply from principal to the agent. That category. So these are the 2 particular remaining category, students, which we need to deal with it. Let's look upon to this one. So therefore now 7.1c, students, in this particular context, be ready now, all of you. So 7.1c, read with schedule 1. Yes, Kavita. Read with schedule 1, students. So therefore this is about the case of permanent transfer, all this is all about without consideration. One thing is common for everything is that we are doing about 7(1)(c) read with schedule 1, therefore it has to be for without consideration. So therefore this is about what? Permanent transfer or disposal. Disposal of what? Tulsi, good evening. Of business asset where the ITC has been availed. The ITC availment is a game, students. On such asset, again I'm repeating this particular point, students, again and again, and that is about that this is all that we are discussing is about without the consideration. What we are discussing, students, in this context is all about without the consideration in that regard. Now, students, be very careful about our discussion that we are going to have in this context. I hope that you also are having the highlighters and all. Keep an eye on that. So I hope that you people would have done it. Let me in fact draw some point with all of you. Now, students, they're using the word business asset. So obviously the services are out. This supply definitely will not target the services. It is only in respect of the goods. But they have not mentioned the word goods. Instead, they have used the word business asset. Now, therefore, the business asset, students, it could be like I can distinguish the business asset like two things. One is, can I say a capital goods is also business asset? And other than capital goods, students, can also be a business asset. Other than capital goods are also business asset. Now, sir, what is other than capital goods? Some of the example. Say, for example, students, in this context, other than capital goods could be my raw material, could be my WIP, or could be my final product, as the case may be, isn't it? So these could be considered to be a case of my business asset. Now, students, in this context, you tell me now, therein in this regard, supposingly there are two things that has happened. Be careful. There is a temporary, in this context, students, there is a temporary disposal or transfer, as the case may be. Be careful, students. Some of the example of temporary disposal or transfer is some of the example which I'm to give it to you about the temporary disposal or transfer happens to be like, for example, for exhibition purpose, I am taking my final product to that particular location. Isn't it? There are exhibitions that happens, and therefore what we do is that we take our product to those location where the exhibition is taking place, and therefore the example is for exhibition, students, in this context. So therefore, that is the point over here. And then thereafter, students, in this regard, you need to tell me, you people, we the people, the same way, students, you the people, whether 7(1)(c) read with schedule 1, will it be applicable or not? Quickly, students. I mark my question very carefully. This is how the ICI keep asking your question in the examination through the form of an adjustment. That's where you people struggle to give the correct answer. Therefore, I am repeating my question is that whether this sort of a disposal can that be considered as a supply under section 7(1)(c) read with schedule number 1. Rishi, Aveen, Aishwarya, Tulsi. So answer is getting clear, Krishna, Jyoti, that this cannot be considered to be a transfer. Sorry, this cannot be considered to be a supply under 7(1)(c) read with schedule number 1. Kavita. So my second question is also ready for you now. And my second question is this a supply now? So one thing you people have concluded now, you people have concluded that, sir, this is not a supply under 7(1)(c) read with what? Read with schedule 1. So my next question is also ready now to all of you. Is it a supply under section 7? And if you say yes, be careful. under which particular clause that you will be saying so in this particular exam. You need to be very specific, students. Don't give the random answers in this one. Don't give the random answer. Krupa, Kavita, Jyoti, quickly be specific. Quickly, students. Give you 10 seconds time. Get me the answer for the same. No, that's Krishna. How can that be? How you say that there is a consideration involved in this? This is I am taking for exhibition. This is a case wherein I am taking for exhibition. Okay. So don't make no mistake. If you people are saying, sir, this is a letting out, please don't get into that, because otherwise I would not have written without consideration. Then that's a case of with consideration. If students be careful, if the consideration has to be written, then why have to give the example over here? If there's a, like you are saying that, sir, it is a letting out of the business asset, then obviously you are getting a rent. That is a consideration. In this example, I'll put it in 7(1)(a). Why I'll put it over here? Isn't it? If I'm putting the example over here, essentially it implies without any consideration. So one thing you people have concluded that, sir, under 7(1)(c), read with schedule number 1, it is not a supply. So my next question was ready. Is it a supply then? Under section. If not in 7(1)(c), then any other clause, can it be considered to be a supply? This was my question. You, the answer definitely is not a supply at all. Be careful, students. The moment there is no consideration in, then the situation is specific. You are already out of the game, except for the 4 cases as identified under 7(1)(c), read with schedule number 1. And only if you fall in those 4 cases, one of those 4 cases, then and only then that without consideration case could be considered as a supply under section 7. Okay, so therefore I told you that it's a without consideration and it is a temporary disposal of that particular business asset. So students, in this particular case, as you said it correctly, students, Aishwarya, yeah, it just taking, it would be referred as what? Exactly that reason which I was looking for in this context. It is simply, it is a case wherein it is simply taking out the goods from one place to another place. One place to another place, students. So this is a case wherein the goods have been taken from one place to another place, and if that is the case, students, so therefore it is not a supply at all. So not a supply, not a supply at all. At all is important. No consideration, no supply, Rishi. And therefore, students, this particular category, if you can appreciate now, tell me whether for this temporary disposal or transfer, are you going to issue a tax invoice? Are you going to issue a, no, no, is it, no, not covered in 25, that is a different case altogether. Is it covered for tax invoice? Will it be issued, students? Whether tax invoice, will that be issued? Tell me, students. Only delivery challan. Only delivery challan. Okay? Only delivery challan. Only delivery challan, students, is what would be issued in this particular context, and that exactly is the game. Now comes the real part. What is that? The permanent. Now the game is on, students. The permanent disposal. Friends, the permanent disposal is what we are going to look into it now at this particular stage. I mean, therefore, now on the permanent disposal part, now permanent disposal, students, will mean 2 things. Permanent disposal in this context would mean 2 things. What are the 2 things? So here I am writing, students, 2 things like this. First, I'll wrap up this other than what is the business asset. Students, the business asset which has been permanently disposed of is other than capital goods, other than capital goods. And over here, students, the first case is this, and the second case, students, the business asset which has been permanently disposed of is the capital goods. Is the capital goods. So other than capital goods, and one is the case of the capital goods. Now, if it is other than the capital goods, students, I gave you the example also in this regard. Say over here, I give you the example of, say, raw material, and here I am giving the example of final product. So this has been permanently disposed or transferred, and in this case, this has been permanently disposed or transferred. Be careful, students. This is all about the game of without consideration. We are talking all about what? Without consideration. Please don't take your eyes off from that important precondition. And what is that important precondition? That important precondition is without any consideration. Without any consideration. Now, if the final product, students, has been permanently disposed of, or if it has been transferred, then what is your take on that? If the final product has been permanently disposed of, or if it has been transferred, then what is your take on this? Can I therefore say it is a supply under section 71C read with schedule number 1? If the final product has been permanently disposed of, or primarily has been disposed of, or it has been transferred without any consideration, can I therefore say it is a supply under section 71C read with schedule number 1? Rishi, Aveen, Jyoti, quickly, students. Last 5 seconds only left. Tulsi, ITC, definitely on the raw material, the ITC is availed. Otherwise, we will not be discussing that. The raw material, the ITC is in this context. So, students, in this context, be careful. So, here in this regard, students, is it a supply under section 71C? 71C, is it a supply in this context? And the answer is it is. 71C read with schedule number 1. That exactly the game. That exactly is the game. 71C read with schedule number 1. It is not a supply. Why is it so? Read it again. Permanent transfer or disposal of business asset. Where what? Where the ITC has been availed on such asset. Didn't I highlighted that? You should have got the hint. You should have got the adequate hint. The moment I am highlighting this particular phrase, you people should have got the adequate hint. What does it imply? It implies that on that particular business asset, I have taken what? Or I have availed what? I have availed the ITC. Which business asset? That business asset which I am permanently transferring or disposing it of. On that particular business asset, I am taking an ITC. Now you tell me, in this particular case, did I took the ITC on what is the business asset over here? Business asset in this case is the final product. Business asset in this case is the final product in this context. So business asset in this particular case is the final product. Did I took the ITC on the final product which has been disposed of permanently? Did I took ITC on the final product which I have disposed of permanently? Did I took the ITC on final product? No. I took the ITC on the input, raw materials. Those are the goods which I have taken the ITC, and what I am permanently disposing of is the final product. So therefore, it cannot be considered as a supply under section 71C read with schedule number 1. And mind you, this is without consideration. This is without consideration. And if it is without consideration, I have told you already. If it is without consideration, then there are only 4 cases in which you will fall yourself into. And obviously, this case doesn't fit into that 4 case, because what has been disposed of is final product. You have taken the ITC on the final product or on the raw material or on the input. On the input. So therefore, it doesn't fit into that category or the para for which the 7(1)(c) is all about. So therefore, it is not a supply. It is not a supply at all. And if it is not a supply at all, no GST levy will be applicable. And if no GST will be applicable, now you have to ask the question, what about, sir, what about the ITC? Because then he is taking ITC, he is taking what? ITC on that raw material and that input. Then what about that? Then be careful, ITC students. Is it allowed in this kind of a raw material? ITC on that raw material in this context, on that raw material or that particular input in this case, is it allowed? Is it allowed, students? So you people should be knowing the fact that there is a concept of a block credit. There is a concept of a block credit, and in that concept of the block credit, the credit on that particular input or the raw material which has been used to provide what? Provide a case of a, this is a case of what? You know what it is? Case gift. This is a case of a gift. When you are permanently disposing of or you're transferring a final product, what exactly it is? Think of it logically. What exactly it is? Don't you think that, student, this is a case wherein I've manufactured a final product and I'm disposing it off or I'm transferring this? Which is the example that should come to your mind? Like I'm giving a samples. Don't you think that the pharmaceutical company, they give these samples to all the doctors? And these are all supplied without any consideration. So in that particular case, those particular final product which you have manufactured and then you are distributing permanently without any consideration, then in that particular case, the raw material which has been used to manufacture that final product which has been disposed of permanently without any consideration, do you get the ITC on that particular raw material? Do you get the ITC on that particular raw material? The answer is no, never. How you say so? 17(5)(h) block credit is a concept on which the credit in respect of those input which has been used to manufacture or supply the output supply distributed as a free sample or as a gift, on that you cannot avail the credit. The credit has been blocked in that particular case. The credit has been blocked. So what is the net result, students? Now can you tell me net result? Output supply, is it a supply? No. So on that particular activity of permanent disposal of a final product, on that activity of permanent disposal of the final product, no GST. No GST. And what about the ITC particular part? Or in respect of the raw material and the input used to manufacture that final product, will you be eligible for ITC? No ITC. Therefore it nullifies. It nullifies. So this is a check and balance which the lawmaker has given. See how the law has been drafted. Check and balance. This is how the ICI test you when the examinations are difficult. This is how these people ask you questions. They want, then you need to read this minutely. Nevertheless, now you tell me one thing about this one. What I have purchased, like for example, I'm a trader. A trader is buying up goods and that goods is been given as a gift. That good has been given as a gift. So you can say raw material or any goods. Please say raw material or any goods. In that context, don't use the word only raw material or any goods, but not a final product. Obviously not a final product. Because then when we use the word final product, it implies that there was a raw material on which you have taken the ITC or you want to claim an ITC, and that raw material has been used to manufacture final product. That final product has been permanently disposed of without a consideration. Whether 7-month C read with schedule 1, will that apply? Answer is no. What about the corresponding raw material used to manufacture this particular file product? 17.1, 17.5H, doc credit is a concept. Coming to any other goods, like I have purchased a good student, I have purchased a goods in this context, and that good students I'm supplying it as a sample. You know, in many business people, they do it. They do it. New Year, what they will do? I will purchase a lot of gifts. I will take, say, 10,000 gifts, students. So, say for example, I have to distribute gifts to the students. 10,000 gifts I have to distribute. So, what I do? I will take that from the supplier. 10,000 gifts. I'll purchase it, and then I will supply the same goods to the students without any consideration. 31st December, New Year, many gifts are being given like this by corporate house. So therefore, you need to ask the question over here. What is the question? Whether that goods that you have procured or you have purchased, whether ITC has been taken. For this, you have to ask the question whether ITC is taken or not. Ask this question. So if on the purchase, did you took the ITC? You have got two answers. You can say, yes, sir, I have taken the ITC, or you can say, no, sir, I have not taken the ITC. If you have taken the ITC, students, then be careful. This will become a case of what? Of supply or not? Yes, under 7(1)(c), read with what? Schedule number. Schedule number. And what about if I have not taken the ITC? I'm smart enough not to take ITC. I'm smart enough not to take ITC. So no ITC I have taken. So will it become a supply? Will it become a supply, students? And the answer, students, in this case, this will not be a supply. Therefore, no question of GST on that. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone? All of you are clear with this one, students? So I hope that all of you are clear with this particular proposition. Tulsi. Now with that, students, comes to this fact that now let's take across the other business asset. This was all about other than capital goods. This example that we were discussing was other than the capital goods. But if I now say that what has been disposed of, obviously after some point of time, after some wear and tear, the capital goods, which is my business asset, that has been disposed of. After some wear and tear, the capital goods, which is a business asset, that has been disposed of. So if that capital goods, students, has been disposed of, if that capital goods has been disposed of, then what you say in that case? So obviously over here, students, you may be aware, students, I need not tell you, you people are aware. Under the ITC law, the life of the capital goods has been taken as 60 months. Under the GST, means 5 years. You will find that particular thing. They have assumed a life of 5 years. That is what they have gone with that particular context, or 60 months as the case may be. That is what is the reflection when you read certain rules in the ITC chapter. So when you have taken a business asset, which is your capital goods, on which you have taken the ITC, and subsequently, after say some point of time, that asset has been permanently disposed of. That capital goods has been permanently disposed of. Then in that case, what they say? In this case, obviously now, is it a supply? Yes, it is a supply. Supply under section 7(1)(c). Read with schedule 1. Why it is a supply? Because that condition is satisfied. The same asset on which you have taken the ITC, the same asset is getting permanently disposed of. Same asset is getting permanently disposed of, students. Now over here, students, what will happen would be on this supply, what is the amount which is payable? That is interesting, students. Amount which is payable. So the amount which you will have to pay for this particular capital good, students. So I'm just putting it over here for all of you. There are two amounts, students. That is a comparison that you have to do over here. What is the comparison? The comparison, students, in this context. What is the comparison, students, in this regard? It is the higher of. Higher of what? It is the higher of two things. One is the tax liability. What is the tax liability? What is the tax liability, students? The value of supply under section 15. Value of supply, students, under section 15 into the rate. Into the rate. That is point number one. The value of supply primarily under section 15 into the rate. And the second one, students, is this. Rule number 42. Higher of the two things. So what is the second one? Comparison of second point. So the comparison of the second point, students, is rule number 44. Are you aware of ITC rule number 44? And what is that? The proportionate credit, ITC credit, will get reversed. The proportionate ITC credit is going to get reversed, students. And what is that proportionate ITC credit that is going to get reversed under rule number 44? Please take a note of it. GST paid. GST paid on that capital goods on which ITC is availed. On which ITC is availed into what? Students, be careful here, students. That in this case, formula. So that GST which I have taken divided by what? Now the balance, students. The balance life left in completed months. And how do I know how much? What is the life? The life is 60 months, students. The life is 60 months. So say after 24 completed months from the date of invoice of the supplier, after 24 completed months, thereafter I am, students, disposing of permanently this capital goods. So what is the balance life left in completed months? Is 36. That is 36, students. So can you see this proportion, students, now? 36 divided by 60. 36 divided by 60 is a pro rata ITC reversal that would be done under rule number 14. And this pro rata ITC reversal would be compared with the tax liability. And what is the tax liability? The value of the supply of this particular capital goods into the rate of GST. Value of the supply of this capital goods into rate of GST. How do you do the valuation? That we'll see. The residual valuation rules, all these things will come into play. Is that point clear to all of you now, students? Every one of you are clear with this one? Quickly, students. Any doubts? If not, then I'm moving to the last category, students. The last category. And virtually then we are done with the supply. Perfect. So now comes the last category, students. And what is the last category, students, that you need to be careful about it? Which all the four is what we have to be discussed. So 7.1c in this regard. Read with schedule number 1 in this context, students. So over here, students, this is a case of the supply of goods from the principal to its agent, where the agent, students, undertakes to supply the goods on behalf of the principal. So this is a case wherein, students, over here, this is the case of, students, over here, the supply of goods, students, by the principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes, students, undertakes what? Undertakes to supply the goods on behalf of the principal. This is important. He undertakes to supply the goods on behalf of the principal. Very important terms. Students, in fact, there was a CBSE circular on this one. You aware of that particular circular? That is a very important circular. Very important circular. And that circular has got a multiple effect. That is what we will go to analyze it over here now. So that based on that, the clarification is done that in this case, how do we know? Now, what do you mean by this term that the agent is undertaking to supply the goods on behalf of principal? What do you mean by this phrase? Of the which phrase, students? Where the agent is undertaking to supply the, the goods on behalf of the principal. What do you mean by this? So they have clarified this. And how they have clarified, students? This is what they have asked one pertinent question, Jyoti. What is that pertinent question? The pertinent question is, this is the question, that the invoice, whether the invoice for further supply, for further supply means after the agent has received the goods, thereafter he will do a further supply. After the agent has received the goods, thereafter the agent will do a further supply. So whether the invoice for further supply is being is being issued by the agent in his name, yes, sure, or in the name of, the principal, in whose name you are issuing the invoice. Whose name you are issuing the invoice. Now, two things: in his name or in the name of, the principal. Indeed, in the name of the principal, students. These are two things would be there. And if it is in his name, students, and there you are, then this is what is a supply under 7(1)(c), read with schedule number 1. Whereas if you say, students, if you say no, sir, the further supply which is made by the agent is not in his name at all, which means that the principal is issuing the invoice in his name to the final customer. So that invoice is in the name of the principal, students. In this context, in the name of the principal, then in that case, students, we already written about. So in this context, students, you tell me, in this context, is it a supply then? So it is not a supply at all. Not a supply under section 7(1)(c). Under section 7(1)(c), read with schedule number 1. Which supply we are talking about, it, students? So between principal to agent, this is what we are talking about it. The delivery between principal to agent is what we are talking about it. Is it a supply between principal to agent? That first state, because then we are not talking about that further supply is a test. Students, please mark my words, what I'm saying, that further supply from the agent to the customer becomes the test to decide whether the previous supply, can it be considered as a supply under 7(1)(c). What is the previous supply? The supply between principal and agent. So that further supply becomes the test, test of what? Test of whether the previous supply between the principal to its agent, can that be considered as a supply under section 7(1)(c), read with schedule number 1. So that further supply, we are doing it to identify the supply or under 7(1)(c). Which supply? The previous supply. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So this further supply is to test what? The further supply is from whom? From agent to customer. That further supply is between whom? From agent to customer, students. I hope that all of you are clear with this particular proposition. Is that clear to all of you, students? Don't get confused. Otherwise, this becomes very risky for all of you in this context. Therefore, in this regard, students, That agent to this agent to customer, that is a test. On that supply will become the test for the previous supply between principal to the agent. Perfect. Now, if that is the case, students, now you tell me how the things would be considered from principal to agent, agent to customer. Here also, principal to agent, agent to customer. Now, agent to customer, students, in this context, everyone would be clear. You tell me first. Over here, this is the first one. Whether in this case, please tell me, from principal to agent, this supply, will it be covered under a tax invoice or whether it is going to be covered in a delivery challan? Whether it is going to be covered in a tax invoice or a delivery challan from principal to agent. From principal to agent, whether from principal to agent, students, whether it is going to go for a tax invoice or it is going to go for a delivery challan. Simple question. Students, in this particular context, it is the case of a tax invoice. Why? Because this is supply. All of you agree this is supply under section 7(1)(c). What about this one, students? From this principal to agent, in this case, the second case that we have identified, whether this is going to go under a tax invoice or a delivery challan. Whether this is going to go for a tax invoice or a delivery challan, students, this would be a delivery challan. This would be a delivery challan, students. Isn't it? Because this is not a supply. This is not a supply, students. I hope that all of you are clear with this. Excellent. Excellent, students. Now come to the second one, from the agent to the customer. From the agent to the customer, obviously from the agent to the customer, it has to be tax invoice. And this supply would be anyway a supply under 7(1)(a) because this would be for consideration. Therefore, this would be for consideration. Isn't it? Tell me, who will issue the tax invoice in this case? Who will issue the tax invoice? Tax invoice would be issued by whom in this situation? Whether the tax invoice will it be issued by principal or by the agent? Who will issue the tax invoice? So the invoice will be issued by whom? By the agent. Indeed. That exactly is the point, students. And now you tell me over here, who is going to issue the tax invoice? In this case, the tax invoice, obviously this is a supply, no? From agent to customer is a supply under 7(1)(a). Who is going to issue the tax invoice over here? Tax invoice to be issued by whom? Who is going to? Indeed, it has to be by the principal. By the principal, isn't it? And that exactly is the game, students. That exactly is the game. If that is the case, students, now you tell me, be careful. Couple of points. Come to the registration part. Registration, we know, students, there are two registration which are there under 22 and 24. Registration 22 and registration. Yes, yes. In this context, herein, in this context, registration under 22 or 24. In the first case, agent, will it get registered in 22? 22 is a threshold, a turnover threshold. If it is crossed, then registration becomes compulsory. Whereas 24 is about what? Compulsory registration in respect of turnover. So over here, now you tell me in the first case, whether it will go under the compulsory registration of 24 or 22 be applicable. So you should be aware of it. Yes, Jyoti. Excellent. You should be aware of it. It would be a compulsory registration, students, under section 24. Compulsory registration students under section 24. That exactly is the game. RCM, we did it already. We already did the cases of compulsory registration. Already we have already capturing all the compulsory registration point students. That exactly is the game. Now you tell me over here, students, in this particular case, whether a compulsory registration will that be required? In this particular case, whether the compulsory registration will that be required, students? Please tell me whether the compulsory registration will that be required. This context. That, students, the answer is so here registration students would be under section 22, which is based on what, students? Based on the turnover criteria. Based on the turnover criteria, students, in this context, isn't it? And that exactly the point, students. Based on the turnover criteria. Is that point clear to all of you? Is that point clear to all of you? If you allow me, students, last question, students, last question, students. So the last question, students, over here is about the fact that, the last question, students, this would be a turnover of principal. Can we say this is a turnover of principal? Yes, obviously a tax invoice has been issued, so it's a turnover of the principal. This particular tax invoice has been issued by whose turnover? Whose turnover, students? It will be the turnover of the. Then we have to go with the definition of turnover of the state. Whose turnover? Whose turnover? Turnover of the. Okay. And the first supply from the principal to the agent, it is a turnover of whom? Indeed, students. It is a turnover of the principal. What about this second one, students? The second part, quickly, students, this one. This is any case, there is no supply. So therefore, there is no question of any turnover. What about this supply? Turnover of whom? Whose turnover? Agent's turnover or principal's turnover? Whose turnover in this? This supply will go. This is our first case, not a supply. So only delivery challan would be issued. This particular case, in this regard, in whose turnover I should consider this particular context, whose turnover? Indeed, students, it will go under the case of principal. It will go under the case of principal, students. That exactly is the point, students. So therefore, this will go. Who is issuing the invoice? Issued by the principal. Whose turnover? Principal's turnover. Who will pay the GST on this supply? This supply, students, wherein the invoice is issued in the name of the principal, GST also will be paid by the principal. So therefore, in that particular context, students, it is a turnover of the principal. It is. I hope that all the incidental point, students, are also being considered by all of you properly. Every one of you. I hope that every one of you are clear with this one. Students, with that, we are done with this particular very important particular point, and we are done with this particular context. Now, students, my humble suggestion to all of you would be tomorrow I'm going to start with the practicals now. Homework for all of you is a mixed supply and the composite supply. What is the homework? Mixed supply and the composite supply. It's the most simplest concept in this chapter of supply. So therefore, mixed supply and the composite supply. There is no nitty-gritties in that case. Directly from the questions, I'm going to put across this two concept of mixed supply and composite supply. I am not going to put that energy in the lecture on this two concept, this particular thing. This is as a homework. Please read this particular two particular parts, and we will be doing the question and answer in the tomorrow session directly. And I am going to capture this particular two particular points in this. Okay. Therefore, students, I in fact just I landed up, students, from Nasik, and I'm very tired in fact. But I thought just to complete these two very important concepts which was left from the last lecture, so that we are good to go for the practicals now, students, of the supply. Tomorrow, students, will be doing it. That practicals of the supply would be an important lecture because all the formatting, presentation and everything would come into play. Only thing, student, that you have to do is about composite supply and mixed supply. Be ready with that, and we are good for this question and answer. This is the only topic which is very tricky, student. Supply. Obviously, a couple of more topics, but this is a very tricky topic, and that is the reason why, students, I ensure to put that much of an effort, all of you, to do with it. But obviously, wherever the things are like composite supply and mixed supply, simplest of the area, okay, that is something that I'll just tell you to do it, so that in the practical part, this whenever the question comes, I'm going to clarify those issues in the practical part itself. Okay, but it is always better that you do it and be ready to give me the answer in the practical question. That is what I expect from all of you. Okay, you then, students, take care. Tomorrow I'll see you. Tomorrow time, students, would be 9:15 only. If at all I'm going to prepone it to 8:30, I'll let you know. But 9:15 as of now. Okay, see you then, students. Take care. Bye bye.